Your life can change in a single moment, but only if you know how to trigger the psychology behind instant action. If you stay with me for the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the exact psychological switch that turns hesitation into momentum, doubt into certainty, and delay into immediate action. This is the secret that separates people who keep thinking about change from those who transform their lives overnight. So why do most people know what to do, yet still don't do it? It's not laziness, it's not lack of discipline, it's not even fear. The real reason is that their emotional state doesn't match their goals. You cannot take bold action with a weak state. You cannot make courageous decisions while feeling uncertain, tired, or overwhelmed. Your state is the engine. Your story is the direction. Your strategy is the map. But without the engine, nothing moves. The psychological secret to creating massive action instantly is simple. Change your state, and your behavior changes immediately. Think about it. Have you ever been exhausted, ready to quit, and suddenly one powerful thought, one conversation, one moment of clarity electrified you? Your energy changed, your focus sharpened, your action exploded. Why? Because meaning shifted, and meaning controls movement. When your brain attaches massive pain to staying where you are and massive pleasure to moving forward, you won't need motivation, you won't need reminders, you won't need someone to push you. You will automatically act. If you want instant action, ask yourself, what will it cost me if I don't change right now? And what could my life become if I act boldly today? Your mind will generate urgency. Your body will generate energy. Your actions will follow instantly. This is how people quit addiction overnight. Start businesses with zero fear. Transform relationships, rewrite their future, not in months, in minutes. The secret is not willpower. It's not discipline. It's state, meaning, identity. In that order. Shift your state. Rewrite the meaning. Step into the identity that matches the life you want. Do that. And massive action won't take days. It will happen right now. Every human being believes their decisions are shaped by logic, careful planning, rational thinking, and well-calculated choices. But the truth is far more powerful and far more uncomfortable. We act instantly when emotion takes control. Logic may guide long-term thinking, but emotion commands immediate movement. Think about the moments in life when you made your fastest decisions. They weren't always the smartest decisions on paper. They were the ones that hit you emotionally. A sudden fear, a burst of excitement, a wave of inspiration, a moment of anger, a spark of hope. These emotional shifts bypass the slow, analytical brain and trigger immediate action. You don't jump out of the way of a speeding car because you logically analyze the angle, speed, and physics. You move instantly because your emotional brain, the survival brain, takes over. This is the same mechanism behind every powerful transformation. People don't change because they think their life should improve. They change because they feel something so intensely that staying the same becomes impossible. When someone feels stuck, unmotivated, or unable to take action, it is rarely because they don't know what to do. It's because their emotional state is neutral, and neutrality is the enemy of action. Without emotional pressure or emotional pull, the brain defaults to inertia. This is why breakthroughs often come in emotional moments. When someone finally reaches their limit, when reality hits hard, when a dream becomes crystal clear, or when a sudden surge of passion or pain shakes their entire mindset. In that moment, logic becomes irrelevant, the emotion becomes the engine, and behavior changes instantly. To create massive action, you must intentionally generate emotional energy, not wait for it. This can be done through movement, visualization, powerful questions, and meaning shifts. Once emotion rises, hesitation disappears. People make calls they've been avoiding for years. They quit harmful habits. They start new journeys. They take bold, uncomfortable steps toward a better life. Because when emotion overrides logic, the brain no longer asks, "Should I do this?" It commands, "I must do this now." That is the psychology behind instant action. One of the greatest misunderstandings about human behavior is the belief that people act because something is important. If importance alone created action, everyone would be fit, financially stable, emotionally balanced, and living their dream life. We already know what's important: health, growth, relationships, discipline, consistency, purpose. Yet people delay the very things that matter most and take fast action on things with almost no long-term value. Why? Because the brain isn't designed to prioritize importance. It's designed to prioritize urgency. Urgency triggers survival circuits. Importance triggers thought. And thought, without urgency, usually becomes procrastination. This is why someone can know for years that they should change their diet, should build a business, or should fix their routines. But they only act when something forces urgency into the situation. A medical report, a financial crisis, a breakup, a lost opportunity, these moments inject a sudden dose of pressure that flips the brain into action mode. The brain asks one question before all action: is there an immediate consequence for not doing this? If the answer is no, the brain relaxes, it postpones, it delays, it waits. Importance whispers, urgency shouts, and action always responds to the loudest voice. The reason urgency is so powerful is because it collapses time. It compresses the mental gap between someday and today. When something feels urgent, the brain stops negotiating, it stops evaluating, it stops overthinking, it simply moves. This is why deadlines work. This is why emergencies create clarity. This is why the last hour before a trip is more productive than the previous week. The brain suddenly realizes this must happen now, and the entire system, focus, energy, decision-making, aligns instantly. The goal then is not to wait for circumstances to create urgency, but to manufacture urgency internally. You do this by attaching real consequences to inaction, by asking yourself powerful questions. What will I lose if I don't do this today? How will my life look in 5 years if nothing changes? What does this delay cost me emotionally, financially, physically? As soon as the brain feels urgency, even artificially created urgency, action becomes immediate. Importance creates awareness. Urgency creates movement. That is the difference between a dream and a decision, and the difference between waiting and acting. Every action you take or fail to take is rooted in the state you are in at the moment of decision. Most people think their life is shaped by circumstances, motivation, or even willpower. But the truth is far simpler and far more profound. Your state is the master switch of your behavior. Think of your state as the temperature of your mind and body. When your state is high, energized, focused, confident, you take bold action. You speak up. You push harder. You solve problems faster. You do things that previously seemed impossible. But when your state is low, tired, uncertain, stressed, distracted, even simple tasks feel heavy. You hesitate, you avoid, you delay, you shrink. It's not the task that changed, it's your state. Your state determines what you notice, what you believe, what you attempt, what you give up on, and how quickly you respond. This is why two people with the same goal can produce completely different results. One takes massive action instantly. The other keeps promising themselves, I'll start tomorrow. The difference isn't mindset. It's the state they operate from. Your state is made of 3 forces. 1. Physiology. 2. Focus. 3. Meaning. Change any one of these and your entire state shifts instantly. Try slouching and breathing shallow. Watch how quickly doubt or laziness creeps in. Now stand tall, breathe deeply, raise your energy. Suddenly your brain wakes up, your confidence rises, and your decisions accelerate. Movement creates emotion. Emotion creates action. This is why great leaders, athletes, performers, and change-makers all use physical and emotional state shifts before taking action. They understand that you cannot act powerfully in a powerless state. The moment you elevate your state, even by force, your behavior changes automatically. You don't have to try harder. You don't have to get motivated. You don't have to wait until you feel ready. A powerful state produces powerful action. A weak state produces hesitation, no matter how strong your intentions are. If you want massive action instantly, don't fight your habits. Shift your state. Everything else will follow. Human beings don't respond to events. They respond to the meaning they attach to those events. Meaning is the invisible force that decides whether you hesitate or take action, whether you feel fear or courage, whether you move forward or stay stuck. And the moment meaning changes, everything else changes with it. Two people can experience the same situation but behave in totally different ways because their interpretation, their meaning is different. One person sees a challenge and feels overwhelmed. Another sees the same challenge and feels excited. One person sees failure as humiliation. Another sees it as education. One person sees rejection as proof they're not enough. Another sees it as redirection towards something greater. The situation is identical, the meaning is not. And meaning is what drives action. When people feel stuck, it's rarely because they lack opportunities, resources, or knowledge. It's because the meaning they have assigned to the action is disempowering. They associate beginning a new project with fear, uncertainty, risk, embarrassment, or discomfort, and their brain naturally pulls them away, not because they can't succeed, but because the meaning feels unsafe. But when you change the meaning, the entire emotional landscape shifts. If you begin to associate taking action with growth, pride, strength, liberation, or excitement, suddenly the same step that felt impossible becomes energizing. If you attach empowering meaning to effort, discipline, or consistency, you stop resisting them and start craving them. This is why some people transform rapidly after a single conversation, a single realization, or a single breakthrough moment. Something inside them clicked, not the situation, but the meaning. And when the meaning shifted, their identity and behavior followed. When your internal meaning becomes empowering, taking action stops being effort, it becomes the natural next step. You move because moving feels aligned with who you are and who you want to become. Change the meaning and the action changes automatically. That is the psychology behind every breakthrough. Pain and pleasure are your ultimate drivers. Massive action happens when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of changing, or when the pleasure of change becomes irresistible. Every decision you make, consciously or unconsciously, is driven by two forces, pain and pleasure. These two emotional magnets pull you forward or push you away. They shape your habits, your reactions, your goals, your fears, your patterns, and your entire life trajectory. You may believe you act based on logic, discipline, and reason, but beneath all of that, your brain is constantly measuring one thing: which choice leads to less pain and more pleasure. This mechanism is ancient. It kept our ancestors alive, and today it controls everything you do. If you're not taking action on something important, it's because right now, your brain attaches more pain to taking action than to avoiding it. Even if logically you want results, emotionally you associate effort with discomfort. This emotional calculation stops movement instantly. On the other hand, people take massive action when something shifts internally and suddenly the pain of staying the same becomes unbearable. A moment of clarity, a wake-up call, a loss, a reality check, these create emotional pain that surpasses the pain of changing. At that moment, action becomes automatic. No motivation needed, no reminders, no struggle. The opposite is also true. If the pleasure of changing, the excitement, the pride, the future reward becomes strong enough, the brain runs toward it with full energy. This is why visualization works, why goals work, why dreams fuel commitment. Pleasure pulls you as powerfully as pain pushes you. The key to creating massive action instantly is to consciously manipulate these two forces. Ask yourself, what pain will I experience if I don't take action today? How will my life suffer if I continue delaying? What pleasure will I gain from acting right now? How will my future transform if I stay consistent? When you intensify the pain of inaction and amplify the pleasure of action, your brain becomes unstoppable. Suddenly, the task you avoided becomes the task you must complete. The action you delayed becomes the action you crave. Pain and pleasure are not enemies. They are the engines that drive your destiny. Identity is the strongest force in human psychology. You will always act in alignment with who you believe you are, even if those beliefs limit you, even if they were formed years ago, even if they no longer serve you. Your identity is like a thermostat. No matter how much motivation heats you up or how much fear cools you down, you will always return to the setting of who you think you are. This is why people say things like, "I'm just not disciplined. I'm not confident. I've always been inconsistent. I'm not the type who takes risks. I start things but never finish." These are not habits. These are identities. And identities override everything. Goals, plans, strategies, motivation. You cannot outperform your identity. You can only upgrade it. When someone says, "I want to get fit," they may try, they may push themselves for a few days, but if their internal identity is, "I'm lazy" or "I hate exercise," their actions will eventually match that identity again. But when a person shifts their identity to, "I am an athlete," their behavior changes instantly. They don't try to work out, they work out because that's who they are. Identity creates automatic behavior. Every major life transformation happens the moment someone says, "I don't just want this, I am this." This is why people who stop smoking after decades often do it in a single moment. They don't say, "I'm trying to quit." They say, "I am not a smoker anymore." Identity changed, and the behavior followed instantly. Identity change does not require time, it requires decision. You can shift identity by declaring who you choose to be, acting immediately in alignment with that identity, reinforcing it with repetition, surrounding yourself with environments that support it, breaking the language that keeps the old identity alive. The moment you decide, "I am the kind of person who takes action," hesitation dies. The moment you say, "I follow through," procrastination loses power. When you embrace the identity of someone who is disciplined, committed, strong, and unstoppable, your brain organizes your behavior around that identity automatically. Identity is the ultimate psychological switch. When it flips, massive action becomes effortless because it becomes who you are.